Paging David Olson. Paging Olson, please come. We're not on California time here.
Awesome. So I understand that some people are still ordering their drinks, so they can keep doing that. But we're going to pray before we start out, if that's okay. So sorry that it's going to get awkwardly quiet now. But let's go on ahead and pray. With amazing background music, this is perfect. All right. God, we come recognizing your autonomy in Christianity. It can offer. Your Spirit knows all the frustrations. For the Q&A portion, God, amen. All right. Well, he's from California, so it's awesome stream as well. So that would be if you have any questions, if you have data. Sorry.
My name's Adam, Reverend Adam Weir. Yeah, about that. Change your mind, or they mean a lot of different things. That's important, and if you're here and you're a conservative Christian, that's great. That's wonderful. Entirely fine. We're just glad you're here. It's all yours, Ira.
All right, I'm one of the co-founders of Cedarville, who are all graduates of Cedarville College. That would be me. For like 5 or 10 minutes. And then we may, as you heard at the beginning, it is being recorded and live. It's being broadcast live. That's an old term. But and hand it to us. Why I'm 84. I am married to a wonderful man divorced before I got gay and protected. Would not listen to rock music. List would come out of what others said that they were Calvinism. We would stay up because we couldn't go to movies. I realized kind of what the big learning about slavery were used to support us, at least some, I hope, where we were not allowed to date, so it wasn't like that was happening. This is that argue position that Scripture clearly says that position. And then we find out 50 years later that perhaps Scripture doesn't say that position. And good God did. And to me in reference to homosexuality. And I'm not saying that race and sexuality are exactly the same. I'm saying Cedarville, and I didn't meet people that were pretty frightening growing up. Like, that's therapist, as in kind arms. Would I give up a leg channel someday? And I'm not, and those interpretations, to realize that I was years trying to be thought, I don't want to be that. Whoops, I'm wrong. Position and what I thought in person. Daniel, gay guy, that was, we, as Adam said, we able to work out their faith. What we found is that people pick ultimate, and they don't want any part of Christianity, understandably. I mean, that's what beat them up. That's what abused them. That's what sent them to hell. That's what cut off their genitalia, whatever it is. Kind of continue being Christian. And I was, they can be gay. They can over and over by Cedarville people that they're a gay Christian. Used, I guess, is maybe why you cling to kind of, there are a lot of lies about them. Is reminding your friend that, as in university said, that's it's going to carry signs God hates. And that's, I don't think it's very hard to be an ally in the lies as it can be. And I urge those of you who are allies to figure out how to do that, and to maybe once in a while sacrifice your own comfort, perhaps the good of somebody's life, showing other people that you're an ass. So we're thrilled that you're here. I'm going to pass academic, so I go on way too long. But on to Adam, and we're just thrilled you're here.
From one academic to another. Get comfortable. Kidding. So, hi again, my name's Adam. I'm a 2003 graduate of Cedarville. So I was here when we somewhat had the internet, but we were still discovering these things called cell phone. University of Aberdeen, and a number of other passes. So if you do, maybe, and I think some of you have, Cedarville, I grew up in, or at least that's what we were. Anyways, at the same time, I can pray this away. Maybe you beat me. Through my senior year, I just realized I think I made the decision life anymore. Cutting off a large portion of and I have to act a certain way. Get bantered about as everything but roller skates. Do you understand how this is not? Oh, wow, I was just a mess. And part of it was that I thought that's what I had to do. That's who I had to be. And that was the community and culture that I had to identify. But another part of it was me, I think, looking back now, just grieving family or giving up close friends. Faith had caused. Sucked. And it was not a really good experience for a long time. Thankfully, at one point in my open listening, and who hadn't gone to Cedarville, was a progressive Christian, very gay accepting and everything, and she just said, you really are, it sounds like you missed it. It really sucks at the end of it. I started to learn that there were that, in the sense that you're just in a long-term process, with a certain group and act a certain way. I thought, hey, okay, I found churches that love me and who like me for who I am, who accept me, but they're really, really progressive, and I don't hear anything. And for a long time, an Orthodox Christian saying that you can build a relationship that is very Orthodox. I think the thing, I guess, I'm starting to ramble. I want to go after Dave did. But just love you too. Just a couple points, I guess I would say in summary, or who others tell you. Christianity, if you are a gay and lesbian person who feels, hey, I do not like this concern, and if you are somebody who just says, I'll hand it off here.
I did not read the story. There's been pieces that I can look back and be like, oh. But growing up, there's definitely, in a conservative Christian environment, marriage is put on a pedestal to be like the ultimate thing that anyone can accomplish in life, especially as a mom wanted for us. And so she got excited every time my crush on someone and would push us like, go for it, go for it. And obviously that never worked. When I came to Cedarville with that mindset, it wasn't until later freshman year that I met Kelsey, and we had like an instant connection. And looking back now, I would have said I had a crush on her, but I would have never identified it as that. And what we wanted. Church culture talks about clue number 74, that is, everyone changes a lot, and back and forth in it for a while. But it was also the dating. We started going to, and we went really well. The Bible together, he basically just sat down and he was like, basically, I'm the shepherd and I have my sheep and I need to protect them and you're tainting. So, needless to say, we left that church. But that was definitely, I think what everyone else I know believed made all the words that other people were tearing me down. And that's definitely, after we've been dating, I wanted to Skype about it, and interesting journey with them. Kelsey's extremely hard to have my mom say things and then finding a place. We're on their journey to find. It's been really encouraging for God to not find myself, that sounds really bad. To say the word lesbian, so I just said it in a microphone. Anyways, yeah. Oh, Kelsey's gonna.
Hi, Kelsey. On it, there's some reasons, and I'm sorry. So like Shelby said, friends with them and stuff, and it's only recently that I've and some of these churches, you might go to some of these churches and you might participate in some of them. And so I just want to highlight this, I guess. In these churches, people will come to opportunity and to get to know me. In these churches, whenever Shelby and I would go and talk, there would always be this level of uncomfortable they would put out. Okay, so my presence in this conversation right now is making you uncomfortable. Not that I'm saying crazy things or even talking about our relationship. My presence alone is what makes you uncomfortable, and that's really, really hard. And also in the undertone of, I'm gonna pray that you turn from your heathen ways. And that's not helpful either, because that's reducing life down to a single issue, and that's really hard. Even though you love me, it's place I don't belong there. At the table of the self-righteous breadcrumbs from people making them feel good about themselves, that praise for you has come just as when Jesus told the next thing after that is that he told them, come as you are and then turn from your sins, right? That's always the second thing that people say. And I think it's important to note that when Jesus told them to turn from their sins, always after he showed them that he knew them. And he's Jesus, so it took years to develop that, right? It was instant. But he always showed that he knew them. It's supposed to be shared with everyone in my life to call out my sins. All Christians should want is for people to come into their lives and be able to call out their sins. If you don't know me, if you don't know my story, if I don't know your story, same thing. You don't have that right. You have to let other people have that right in your life unless they are invested in a person, not just as an issue, not just as an idea, but as a person. I've known people for a really long time, but I'll explain. To be in a relationship with a woman that aren't necessarily grace in this issue. Like there has to be so that we can be able to serve through my interaction.
You can't do this, of course, with people on the live. Oh, okay. But take that as you will. Church, and we met with 4 families. They actually have their own church. So I want to talk to you guys about, and it's something that I'm still learning on their journey, but this is what I'm learning from my desire to be in many permanent facets in my life. Conversations where I talk about my sexuality, and it's kind of, I feel like it is a struggle for some people, but it's a struggle for me. I'm gay, and so it's just been about that we have to be our full selves in conversations like this, in places that ever since I can remember, it was a goal of mine to be in kind of ministry, if only on the weekends, but like consistent ministry. Places, one is my home church, and another one is a church like one word. All 3 of these places, my 2 favorite genres of music, it's in a church context. I transferred away from Cedarville to Wright State University just down the street. And when I share my story with them and kind of my experience with the church, without be a part of a community that up on that doesn't seem loving community, didn't work. I feel like there was just this influx of that, but then I made it into this other group. So I was a part of a traveling group wanting to campaign. I know where they're coming from, this kind of misconceptions with this, and take it to date or to go with it, that kind of GA. And so they removed me. It was just uncomfortable with me leading. I'd be the one to tell me, like, from their son, he's involved in, tell you weeping when they told me. I have a lot of peers that are in Cedarville that are a part of a ministry in Xenia just down the minutes. And there was a whole nother issue there more recently where there were all these there were all these gotten for some reason, which was really surprising, is that innate to me and something that's real good. But I also believe, same thing with reparative stuff for me in my life at different times. My sexuality, me being gay, is something that is something that's concrete and something that's not going to change. So the idea, what I'm learning now is that when I get into really tough conversations, when I know I have to talk to a higher power to me, one thing that I tell myself before I go in is, you know what? They might clobber you with their degrees and with their knowledge basis, but when you go into these conversations, you have to be fully gay and fully Christian at the same time because those things are permanent in your life. And so that's just been something that's the way that I try to go about them. But then it's like, okay, being fully seen right now, then how can you be fully engaged and how can you come to some enlightening, resolution, if you will, with them? And so a big thing that I've been learning lately about talkbacks and as your full self. And really quickly, if you don't mind, I'll share kind of you guys, it wasn't like prophetic or anything, so we don't have to another talkback issue. I really loved myself and was proud of myself just on a basic level, just being by yourself, waking up in the morning. Who are you? Are you proud of yourself? Looking apart from like your work and what you do. And I would always assign my worth to what I did a year ago. But I had this vision in the back of my head. This is before I really started coming out to people. I would imagine that I would come up in distance. I would come up and meet someone's face talking. And for so long, because they didn't know who I really was, gay and a Christian, there would be this warmth, and I would have a home in their eyes. I would look in their eyes. That was like the thing that I kept picturing. I would look in their eyes, and I would see that there was no interactions, but that knowing that you had a home in people's hearts and there anymore. And it's that reality and patience or long of hurt, and that gay person was just rejected. If you're willing to engage the journey, I don't think that makes sense.
heard a few of our stories. You know, open the floor to Clyde if you want to, and hand them to Zach, and I think I understand that sentence.
Don't be shy, you can't scare us, I think.
Yes.
That sounds very interesting.
Question. I'm not at all dismissing your question. Important one, and I know it's a very important one to this community. But we'll spend a couple minutes on that, and then encourage you to go stuff that we might mention to kind of.
And so there shouldn't be these other things. And so to think that there should be any, I like very permanent parts of my identity. So they're not worrying.
Was the thought that Jesus died, the veil was torn, so there was no, we didn't have to have a high priest. Any of us as Christians didn't have to have a high priest to make an offering before God for the forgiveness of our sin. We could all go to him just as we were, a common person to a theologian, we could all go to him. So I think if that were an example for providing offerings, there should be a level for the sake of other people, then I think that means that God also isn't afraid of our mess and he's not afraid of it getting too loose. But I think have access to him, so therefore we should.
Told you. That talks about sexuality. Remember what course was he still even teaching? God, you have to love yourself first in person. Why? Well, sexually in the Old Testament. Leviticus is very clear. It's against sodomy. Today's world, go there. I like it. You can't. You have 1 Corinthians 6:9. I told you that in the history, because if you look up John, sodomy at all, but it's not the words there through it all. How I kind of balance
that. If you're looking for something to read that's logically found, because there's a lot of books that are like very testimonial about people who came out and have struggled with it and stuff, but it's called Changing Our Mind by David Gushee. Kingdom Ethics, which most of us read at sea, opposed to all the stuff flying around. So, anything.
But I guess it's kind of for you, without saying to the mic, just to make it awkward. So I'm getting a ton of questions coming in from like the conversation can keep going, like within.
So that's a part of the answer, and we would hope that, again, as Adam said, it could take him 3 years to go through each one, and I've had to listen to it, and you don't want to listen to it right now. But you recently, one of the things that kind of shaped my view of my own family was that we see through a veil darkly, yet one day face to face. So and that became my clarion call that I'm human and I'm only seeing a part of this, and to declare that I know all risks on my part and make up my fallibility, and in that my certainty on so much. I mean, I went and witnessed to everyone. I was in the mall. Like, I talked to everyone and thought they were going to hell if I didn't say something to them. I counted my crowns in heaven. I was pretty much you don't want in the 5th grade when you tell your 5th grade teacher hell at the public school. So their favorite verse became, "I believe, help thou my unbelief." And both of those kind of got me to start thinking about things in a different way. Do we have another question or questions from the Twitter or from Yik Yak?
I see a hand about to go up.
Yes.
For straight Christians to hold a more traditional view of homosexuality, like don't necessarily believe it's right, how can we interact lovingly, have a better term, unharmfully with members of the LGBT community?
Okay, so it's for straight Christians who sexuality where homosexual. Is that a fair representation of your question?
Playing on the slightly Calvinist line that comes out at Cedarville. I'm sure you've all never heard anything like that. So, if homosexuality is a sin, and that's cool, we can say that. I think the thing we have to remember is, if you had other, because but me honestly know this. Just like you would, people don't have to do personal evangelism class anymore. you wouldn't want some.
I would just say listen. Like, half the time, if you just listen to me and don't say anything, I'll just listen to me. And I think there's a way to be open-minded without actually changing your beliefs. Like, you can still have a discussion. So it's just like, it's a small part of us that seems like a big thing because it's a hot issue and a cool thing to talk about. But like 90% of the time when I go around, like, the fact that I'm in a relationship with a girl has nothing to do with anything. So it's just like, don't make it about everything. Don't, whatever, you know what I mean? Anyways.
Family members who will not react.
I mean, my sense was I did not want to see my family's first response. And some people were like, oh, that's chicken. But I didn't want to hear it right away. I wanted to give them time to process and to engage the issue if they wanted to engage it. And so I was more interested in their third response or their fourth response. And when it was said, pretty painful kind of during those days with the U.S. Post Office, and then another however long it took to get back to me. So, today it's a little easier. You send the email and it's, they'll probably read it. You can text them. Well, perhaps not. But for me it was, I had spent my life trying to make other people comfortable, that this is reactions. Trust me, the process of welcoming and embracing and members flag. There'll be a variety of reactions. Those reactions will change over time. And so I would also say, give your family perhaps the time, entire conscious life, or the last 5 years, or however long it was, until you became conscious of it. Or send, often family members know, and they're just waiting to tell you, or they're waiting for you. As I told my family, the only thing different about me is that you now know me better. I am no different. Know me better. And what you do with that is really up to you. And so
I think I'll echo what David said. Honestly, just hang on. That didn't go so well. If you'll remember, I said I grew up in a really conservative family, and they acted in a really conservative way. It was not pretty. And a number who are watching on the internet, they've had some pretty similar experiences. It sucks. It very well may be the closest thing to hell on earth for somebody to go through. It can be really hard. Be ripped you to shreds. I can also say some of which are a little more pointed, and that's not fun. The thing is, though, oftentimes grace is a funny little sucker. It sneaks in the weirdest, if you give it enough time. Like I said, my family did not react well at all. And that's about 15 years ago now. Now we're at a point where my parents are still kind of sorting this out. They're mostly talk about it. But the rest of my family, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, their sister-in-law, brother-in-law, grandparents, they're fine. They know, and for some of them, it took them a few days. For some people, it took a few years. And some people just went, oh, cool. So be true to you. Say what you have to say. And just know that it does better. And oftentimes it will.
I didn't see it at the time, but I was actually really in the way that I came out to my parents. I came out when I was 13 years old, and I was forced to do it and said, either you come out, but I guess you would consider 13 a really early age to come out to your parents. And so as a 21-year-old now, I could have never the growth that I would have with my parents, and even that they would have with themselves. Something that they say to me all the time is that at the time when you came out out the window, if we could have pushed a button to say, are you gay or not gay, they would have pushed, like, if they had a choice and they were able to say that I wouldn't be gay anymore, and have a really tough look in the mirror with other people and their ability to play. But again, you have to just gird yourself up and remind yourself that the experience that you sit in when you come out, maybe the next few years, may not hopefully be the experience that you'll always have with your, there is a potential for it to get better.
There's one there.
Yes.
Because you believe in God, is there anything positive that God is doing through you in allowing you to be a gay person or not changing you?
Oh, okay.
I think everyone's sort of been through that process at some
Okay. Out of, for years, I thought if I was not to be gay, I would. Like, if I could do, I would do it. And, you know, people often said to me, or I often said to myself, wow, why would I, you know, there's that argument. Why would I make my life so difficult? Why would I, you know, have to come out? Why would I ever put this on? And if I could push a button, kind of as and said, I would have pushed the button of not gay. And at a certain point, I realized, wow, that is actually who I am. To deny that is to deny who made me. And for me, that was a very comforting and forgiving moment to myself. That so it was a
Okay, things obviously with the name. And it's this earth-shattering, you don't know what understand what the, obviously, I am other people.
Actually, I'm in this really amazing class this semester, and we had to something on a piece of paper I think she asked like, who are you, or how do you best identify? Because for the last, I think, 8 or so, I am in that way, not just black, not just anything else. But I believe that I am a lesson learned or a lesson understood. I've found that in many instances, I'm not just any of those identities. I've learned dissonance, which up and learn how to let other people listen because I wasn't comfortable with sharing who I was. And so I think as an adult now, I've found that I don't know if I would have the level of empathy for other people or the ability to listen to people that I would have had to your community.
So support. I think we were fortunate enough to get, and so like before, after that, like as you come, is so you can talk to us for yourself, or you can talk to us.
No, I just would encourage you to, a lot of resources out there, you know, some internal, some external. We have a lot of stories on the cedarvilleout.org webpage. There's a lot of resources. We have stories, and I'm a believer in saying what your story is moment and finding people who will hear your story. They may not agree with your story, although it's hard to kind of argue against a personal story, but at least you'll find some kind of friendly churches in the area. And so I think, yeah, if you want to talk about more of those, that would be great. Yep. Yes. Okay. The question was about, we've talked about just knowing that that's who we are and that it's not a choice. And how do we know that it's not a choice? Is that your question?
I would just say, how do you know you're straight? Like, genuinely. Can you identify why you know you're straight? Because it's the same thing, if that makes sense. You don't really think about it, you just know. You know what I mean? That's all I have to say.
Okay, people are, you know, up, it's like all the guys at the lunch table are talking about this one girl, and you're like, actually, I'm really kind of into the guy at the end of the table with the blue eyes. And that's when you go, oh crap, something's wrong with this. Or at least, even then, you don't maybe think about it, and you're like, well, this is what it is. And then it's later when somebody says, oh my gosh, that's gay, and you're like, what the heck is gay? And you're like, oh crap, that's me. And that's really what it is, where you just go, it's not something you think about. Something you go, and it's something we can talk about later probably, maybe, but it's not something that you go, well, what am I? Let's see, today's a Friday, so we'll flip a coin, and it's not really how it is. It's just something, it's almost like it's internally hardwired, because it is. You don't wake up in the morning and think, I'll put my gay shirt on today, and I'll be gay. Well, okay, Dave, you do.
I think everybody's journey, we've talked about very early memories, some of us, of, being attracted to someone or going back to the age of 3 or 4 and then kind of figuring out what that narrative is. I think other people, it dawns on them. And I've talked to people who, after they graduate from college, at the age of 24, they've never, I think some people are able to explain it, over a long period of time, and others, it's a shorter period of time. And sometimes it's just hard to explain if it's so, as people have said, close to who you are, and it is who you are. Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say I really appreciate you guys for just being willing to answer all these questions. I know it must be a little annoying, but
Is it a little annoying to answer all these questions, was the question? No, it's not annoying.
The big thing I'm really struggling with is, I'm sure you guys can relate, having gone through a lot of things Bible story, and that grace brings us back, and that we see a lot of natural things that are good, like pride and lying, and I guess the majority of what I just keep hearing you guys say is that the reason
that we say is that it's about how we knew. It's more than we think it's right because it's natural in later, but the idea being that everyone's making the argument that it feels right, therefore it is right, or it's right because for us it is as much a state of being as someone said being gay is as being straight, and straight people are typically not asked to justify that I know it's a sin, that's the end, that settles it for me. Then there's not a place to talk. I mean, then we're kind of left with nothing to say because...
And also off of your question, original text, there's more than one way to say love. There's like a friendship love, there's like a family love, and then there's like an intimate love. And so I think that the issue of homosexuality has been so sexualized in the media and just in general in the churches that it's really easy to just think that that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Erotic love. And so like to think, okay, when did you first know? It's like it's so much more than just like a physical. And so the Bible even says natural and unnatural. The natural thing's not really an argument for me, but I think that would be helpful for your question also.
So what you're going into is largely natural law theory from a theological aspect. And it's problematic. It doesn't think, okay, and we know we're sinful and God's grace is what saves us. Okay, so what's natural must obviously be that which is wrong. Well, the problem is then how do you determine what is right and wrong? Well, we go to the Bible, right? Well, and then you come back to the point of some of these passages are a little difficult or a little different than we're translating them right now. Case in point, 100 that. Don't believe me? Go check out Brown's self-interpreting Bible from the 19th century. Very blatant in the story of the curse of Ham, that the races are segregated by God's judgment, and that shows that Africans should be subservient to whites. Well, obviously we got that one wrong, but the question becomes,
that was more of a commentary.
Texts that have been written. It's not commentary, it's publication to back that up too. Just me. All that to say, who judges what is right and what is wrong off biblical interpretation changes over time. You may think I'm wrong, and I may think you're wrong. 20 was, because we don't really know that. That's being.
You also have to keep in mind that when acquiring a woman, and then the gay relationship like that in worship. So like the context. So you have to think about if you're talking.
Yeah. So kind of specifically context, and we're talking about how to do that in a certain context. So let me find it real quick. Any advice you have for straight allies afraid of taking a stand? And how can students that
That's a lot in 3 minutes left.
Open, being, there are often that you might overhear comparing gay people, to example, to murderers. Now, while you might say that all sin is sin and there are no consequences, even granted, best word isn't helpful, humanizes people, regardless of what ideas of grace.
Real quickly, especially within a Christian institution context, one thing I feel like is kind of a safe place to start is, and it's funny because I feel like concern about for just engage, and that's oftentimes about your actions or whether or not it's a really beautiful place to start.
Most of you who have spent years with the dominant, even feel up here the dominant. I do think that as we engage this, we do it with grace, and we do it with a way of saying, like, there are so many people that I've talked to who I've said, and they will list all of these authors who are against homosexuality, but who quote from homosexual-friendly literature, certain of how they've been raised, position that you were in. You're going to have to deal with it to some degree. It's, and if you engage it, your conclusion. I relate to this kind of conversation because I'm a part of the community. They're like, why do you keep going back? And I'm like, because I was there, and I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to be LGBT in that community, and it can be a pain, lonely, given that dominant narrative. And so even on the other side of it, with the same position, at least you've respected people, and that you read in your Take Baptist History anymore, but that I read in my Baptist History or in your New Testament survey class. There are lots of other authors who identify as Christian, some don't, and I just wanted to thank all of you, and hopefully we can, and I'm going to do a study of the not so fascinating parallels. We're happy to share